Okay, we're gonna be making the big beef bowl, the triple B. Now this is the meal you'll be eating most frequently in the program, and it only has a couple ingredients, just like everything else. Takes a few minutes to make, but there are two things you need to do in advance to get ready to make the meal. So the first thing is you wanna cut up some sweet potatoes. So I've already done this. I've got a big bag of frozen sweet potatoes. I actually have 3 of these in the freezer. And I use this vegetable slicer. I'll link to it on the website, but this makes it real fast and easy. You just grab a bag, take 10 minutes, slice them all up, throw them in plastic bags and put them in the freezer and you're good to go. During the fall months, a lot of times at the grocery store, you'll find that they have pre-cut sweet potatoes. So when that happens, I usually stock up and save myself that step, but really it's not that big of a deal. The other thing you wanna do is get the rice started. So the rice takes about 10 to 15 minutes to cook. And so if you wanna eat right away, you wanna start that first, and then it'll be ready to go when you're done cooking the rest of the bowl. So I use this little rice maker. I love this thing. It costs about 15 bucks, makes great rice, super simple. So I've got that, and then I'm gonna show you how to get that started. So we'll plug this in. And gonna use the bowl here. Now with rice, this is really important. The cup that comes with the rice maker is smaller than a standard measuring cup in the US. And so you wanna make sure that you're using the cup that comes with it, or if you have a rice container like this, it has a cup on top, and this is 1 cup here is smaller than a standard measuring cup. If you just wanna be really accurate, I think it's about 160 grams of rice. So you can use your food scale and just measure out 160 grams of dry rice. That's 1 cup. But really, I just measure it with the cup and kind of eyeball it. So first thing with the rice, I'm gonna do 1 cup. So the amount of rice in the bowl is gonna vary depending on what meal plan you're using. So if you're on the lowest meal plan, with the least amount of calories, I think you're gonna use 1/2 cup. And then in the intermediate one, you're gonna use 1 cup. And then if you're on the highest calorie meal plan, you're gonna use about 1.5 cups. And even beyond that, if you're having problems gaining weight, just adding another 1/2 cup of rice is a great way to jack up the calories. Similarly, when you're trying to cut, we'll be reducing the rice, and you can go almost down to no rice. You'll see in the program that we have a cutting day that has basically no carbs in it. But in the meantime, I've got a cup of rice that goes into the bowl, and you want to rinse it. So just cold water, just fill it up, and it just gets some of the starch off. And then you just drain it out into the sink. And then the cool thing about a rice maker, I'm assuming most of you guys have used one. If you haven't, it's really simple. So there's little markings on the inside of the bowl, and it correlates to how many cups you've put into the bowl. So makes it really simple to make good rice. So I put 1 cup into here. So I'm just gonna fill it up to 1 cup on the marking. And then that goes into the rice maker. It's literally 1 button, and that'll take 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes to cook the rice. In the meantime, I can tell you about what else is in, or the other ingredients in the bowl. So beef, obviously, you're gonna use 1 pound of beef. This is 90-10. Leaner than this, and it gets kind of gross. I mean, it's just flavorless, and so I want a little fat. 90-10 is a good compromise. 85-15 is even better. I mean, it tastes better, but you're gonna get more calories with that. So I just went with 90-10, but it really doesn't matter unless you're really trying to reduce calories and cut, then you wanna stick with leaner meats. 90-10 is a good compromise. So 1 pound of that. I've got a bag of frozen spinach that's chopped. I like to use vegetables that I can keep in the freezer so they don't go bad. And I mean, I'm eating a lot often, so that's not gonna be a problem, but it gives me less anxiety to know that nothing is spoiling. So sweet potatoes we talked about, the rice we talked about. I get my rice at Costco. I have a 25-pound bag there, so that's gonna last me a long time. Seasoning wise, I got packets of this McCormick Brazilian Steakhouse marinade seasoning. Now, I have to give credit. I actually stole this or borrowed it from years ago. I saw a video with Chad Wesley Smith, who's a strength coach over at Juggernaut. And he was making a cooking video using this stuff, and I tried it, and it's delicious. So shout out to that guy. You can really use any seasoning you want. I just like the way this tastes. It has a little bit of heat to it. I mean, I'm a total wuss when it comes to spicy food, but it just adds a little bit of flavor even I can tolerate. So I use this stuff, but again, anything, even salt and pepper will work. And then to top it off, you want to get some type of everything bagel seasoning. Again, I get this stuff at Costco, and this is, I mean, if you haven't tried this stuff, it just makes everything taste better. So this is good to add on top after you're done cooking. Okay, so the rice is done cooking. We can get into making the rest of the bowl. Now, like I said, I'm using 1 pound of ground beef in this recipe. The recipe in the book renders 2 servings. So each batch that you make will give you 2 meals. So I'm gonna have 1 for dinner, and then I usually have 1 for lunch the next day. You can plan ahead and meal prep and make bigger batches if you want by just doubling or even tripling the ingredients in the recipe. In that case, you're gonna wanna use a bigger pan. So this is a 7-quart Dutch oven, and there's a link to this on the website. Something like this is great for making multiple batches in advance, and then you can put them in the fridge or even store them in the freezer. These are called super cubes, and they're like silicone, almost like giant ice trays. But if you're gonna make a lot of batches or a big amount, you can put the individual portions in here and then just throw it in the freezer. Otherwise, I'm just gonna use a regular nonstick skillet. And like I said, I've got the rice going. I've got all the stuff I need. So I'm gonna start by weighing out my sweet potatoes. So before I do that, I'm gonna start heating up the pan. So again, this is just a normal skillet. There's a link to something like this on the website. Any nonstick pan will work. You wanna make sure it has a lid because it's gonna help cook a little bit faster. So that goes on medium-high heat. And then while that's heating up, I'm going to measure out 200 grams of sweet potatoes. So since these are frozen and they're sweet potatoes, they need to go in the microwave first to soften them up, or they'll take forever to cook. So I've got my food scale out, and usually one big handful is about 100 grams, so 120. So I'm gonna measure out 200 grams of sweet potatoes. And then these can go back in the freezer. And I'm gonna throw that into the microwave for 3 minutes on high just to soften them up so they don't take that long to cook. If you can hear that, that's my dog Clint drinking water very loudly. He doesn't know I'm recording this video. So, okay, so I've got the sweet potatoes going. I'm heating up the pan. I'm gonna give it a little coating of cooking oil. Again, this is coconut oil. You can use whatever you want. That goes on the pan. And again, I'm gonna lay down some paper towels just because I tend to make a mess and it's easier to clean up that way. Got to get the beef ready and cut open the sweet potatoes. So I'm gonna grab my knife and just open up the beef here. Okay, so that's ready to go, and then I need to cut open the bag of frozen spinach. Now I'm only going to use half of this bag. So if you can find it in bulk, that's great. Usually it'll come in a bag like this, and I use about half for each preparation. So that's ready to go. And just wait till the pan gets a little hot. And I'm gonna put the beef in, and I wanna brown it first to give it a little bit of a crust on the bottom. The tool that I'm most excited to share with you is this thing. So this is made by OXO, and I think it's called a meat chopper. There's a link to this on the website, and you can see it's kind of a X shape. And this thing is great for breaking up ground beef, ground turkey, whatever. So makes it really easy. I love this thing. You should definitely pick one of these up because you're going to be making this meal a lot if you're following the program. So the pan is smoking. So I'm going to put in the beef. And I'm going to use the meat chopper to spread all the ground beef out. You can see you just kind of mash it up and down, and it makes it really easy to separate all the meat into little chunks. It also has one edge. It's like a silicone spatula, so it's convenient for mixing things too. And you'll see, especially if you're going to make a big batch of this stuff, getting in there and being able to turn it around like that without having to scoop it keeps everything in the pan. So it's a really convenient tool. That's browning. I'm going to leave that there, and I'm not going to touch it for a while. If you keep stirring it up, it's never going to get that crust on it, which makes it taste better. So I'm just going to leave it there. Sweet potatoes are partially cooked. Leave those over there. Now I'm going to season it. So like I said, I use this Brazilian Steakhouse marinade, and I'm going to use about half a packet of this. So I just eyeball it, and one of these packets will get me two basically meals, or 4 meals actually. So I'm just going to cover the meat with the seasoning. And usually if you cover it, if you kind of cover every little bit, that's about half the packet. So the rest of it I'll fold up and I'll save it for the next one. Okay, now I'm going to dump the sweet potatoes in here. So we can let those, just kind of spread them out. And let those keep cooking. Again, sweet potatoes are really hard. They take a while to cook. So a little bit of microwave and then into the pan as soon as possible. And again, I'm just letting the meat brown here. I don't want to touch it. I want it to get that crust on it. So I'm just going to leave it alone for a couple minutes and let it go. In the meantime, I can stir up my rice. So your rice maker will probably come with a little rice paddle like that. You can just open it up and give it a little stir. Once it's done cooking in a rice maker, it'll just go into a warming mode to keep it nice and warm. So you can actually make the rice, half hour, even longer ahead of time when you know you're going to cook dinner, just so it's ready to go. So I'll usually put the rice on and maybe go take a dog for a walk or something, and then the rice is ready for me when I'm ready to cook. So the meat is browning, and what you're looking for, just like if you're cooking a burger, when the blood comes to the other side of the meat, that usually means the bottom side has browned appropriately. So you just leave it alone until you start to see little pools of blood. Kind of gross. But I guess we're all carnivores if we're doing this program. So we'll let that go. Speaking of which, the Big Beef Bowl uses beef because it's more nutrient dense. It tastes better. But you can use turkey. You can use ground chicken. It'll be a little drier. It won't have the flavor, but there's nothing wrong with that. And it's a good way to reduce calories. So if you're getting into a cutting phase and the beef, you've gone down to even 96.4 and you're still not losing weight, another way to reduce calories and still get enough volume is to switch to something like turkey, which is a lot leaner. So, but this is beef, and I'm starting to see a little bit of the blood, so it's getting brown. So I'm going to take my spinach, frozen spinach, and just dump about half the bag right on top. And this can get kind of messy rolling it back up. And then I'm just going to spread it around a little bit and throw the lid off. And that's going to help the spinach cook a little bit faster. So it's really useful to have one of those lids. So I'm just going to leave this here for, 3 or 4 minutes, just to let the vegetables, the spinach, thaw out and the sweet potatoes keep cooking. And then I'm gonna get in there with my meat chopper and just kind of mix the whole thing together. Now, you can add the rice, which is done and ready to go, into the pan and mix it all up into one big bowl and then portion it out. That's fine, that's the way I used to do it. But now I've decided that it tastes better for some reason if I put the rice on the bottom and then put the meat and veggies on top. Something about the rice clumps together and it just has a little bit better texture if you don't mix it all in. So personal preference, doesn't really matter. And again, if you're making a whole big batch of this stuff, like you're gonna use like 3 pounds of meat in one of these Dutch ovens, you just dump the rice on top and mix it all in. So it's been sitting there for a few minutes. I'm gonna take the lid off and just check it and give it a stir. This is where that tool comes in handy, because you're chopping, breaking everything up and mixing it together. Get everything, and I'm just looking at the meat and trying to see if I see any pink. So some of the pieces are cooked, but you can still see that it's a little bit pink, so it's got a little more cooking to do, but not much. So in that case, I'm gonna put the lid on and take it off the heat because it'll finish cooking. In the meantime, I'm gonna start cleaning. I don't like doing dishes after I'm done eating, so I usually try and do most of my cleaning while I'm cooking. Saves time. Rice is done, so we can unplug the rice maker and take the lid off and just give it mix it up a little bit. This thing's hot, so you're going to want to use a oven mitt or a towel when you portion it out. So the meat and veggies look, I'm just going to give it another glance to make sure I cooked it all the way. And it looks perfect. So you want to cook it till the paint just disappears, because again, half of this stuff is going into the fridge and you're going to microwave it the next day when you want your lunch or your next meal. So if you don't want to overcook the meat. So as soon as you see the paint go away or almost go away, pull it off the heat and just portion it out. And I'm going to I've got my bowl that I'm going to eat with now. And then I've got one of these glass lock storage containers. This is going to be my lunch tomorrow. So dinner tonight, lunch tomorrow. And I'm going to portion the rice out. So I made a cup of rice. And again, you can mix this into the whole pan if you want, but I like to separate them. I just think it gives the rice a little bit better texture. So half of that is going in this bowl, and half is going in the glass lock container for tomorrow. I'm gonna throw that in here with some water to make it easy to clean. And then I've got my meat, and I'm gonna portion the beef and veggies right on top. So have a spoon, like plastic spoon that I use, and you'll get the hang of this, but usually it's about 3 or 4 scoops for each bowl. So I just scoop them out one at a time. One. There's 2. There's 2. 3. And got a little bit left over, so we'll just put half in that one and half in the one for tomorrow. Now, we talked about cleaning. I like to clean my pans right away. I know my mom would get mad at me because she said you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to let them cool down, but I have really hot water. So I just throw that in and clean everything. Well, I can't even eat the food yet because it's way too hot. So, okay, so I'm all done cooking and I'm done cleaning for the most part. I've got my dinner for tonight and then I've got my lunch for tomorrow. So this is gonna go back in the refrigerator and then I'm just gonna microwave it. You pull it out, put it in the microwave for 3 minutes on high, stir it up, and you're probably good to go, maybe another 30 seconds. So I don't have to cook lunch tomorrow, and I usually will make this every night for dinner. When you're cutting, the amount of rice that you use in the bowl is the big thing that's going to change. So the amount of meat stays the same, the veggies stay the same. It's really about manipulating your calories up and down with the amount of rice. And in fact, when you're getting into really low calories or you're trying to get really lean, get rid of the rice altogether, and I'll use something like riced cauliflower instead, which is very low calorie but still gives you some volume so you don't feel like you're starving. That's pretty much it. Like I said, nice and simple. Took probably 10-15 minutes to make 2 meals. So give it a shot. Hope you like it, and thanks for tuning in.